Hi, friends. Hello, the world. Welcome back to this episode of Complaint Free Life. And with you, your host, Asel Ormodova. The reason I'm so happy and just wanting to get all the things out is the topic that I'm so excited to share relating to how do we know if it's working. Because I get this question so often, and I've been thinking about a lot how to structure it in a way that makes sense to you all and also use it to our advantage rather than using it as a tool, like a scary tool of not knowing where we're going and how we're going. Because whatever the goal you're setting for yourself, whether you're transitioning, whether you're setting smaller goals on monthly basis, whether you're setting bigger goals, whatever the goal is, there will always be eventually the question of if it's working. Because as I was saying in my post, that our brains love to have the evidence, physical evidence, or evidence that it considers to be factual somewhere we can see that shows to us that it's working. And if it's not working, what's the point of working on it? What's the point of spending time or money and energy on it? So obviously our efficient brain wants to work on it as much as possible until to get the result so that it has the belief then to say, yes, it's working and we continue working on it, right? So how do we really know if it's working? That's the question that I want to answer today. And I have tried to also, in order to answer this question, I have documented all of my thoughts meticulously over the months of May so that I have some evidence of how an average brain may produce what types of thoughts on daily basis in relation to that goal to suggest whether it's working or not, so that I have documented them. And if you are interested, of course I can share the whole list for every day, and I will not be boring you with all of that today, but I will sum up some of them so that you can see what our brains usually on default or by default may do these things. And if it wasn't for my coaching of my brain myself or getting coached by my amazing coaches, I don't think that I would have achieved my goal that I did in May. And I will also talk about what those goals were and how I achieved it, having all the things that were going on, right? So the all the mindset piece around how or whether it's working, this is the podcast that you want to listen to. And I'm assuming it's going to be more than 20 minutes as the usual time, but I hope that you will still get a lot of value out of it because it is one of the main topics that breaks or succeeds us in getting our goals. The question of how we answer whether it's working or not. So let's start from the basics. Why this question comes up, right? So why our brains are so keen to finding out whether something that we're working on is working or not. Usually we want to say it's out of curiosity. It can be, but what I see very often in my clients, in my own brain, and in people I interact with, the most reason why we're asking that question is out of scarcity, out of fear, right? So these are the reasons why we're asking it. We're not asking because we're just curious whether it's working or not, even though that does happen and that's amazing and we'll talk about it. But we usually ask this question out of, oh my God, if it's not going to work out, what if it's not going to work out? I better check it's working. And if it's not working, what am I going to do? I need to have a plan B, plan C, whatever it is. And we even get very sophisticated answers in our brains that says, if it's not working, I need to be really organized and I need to have everything in place so that I don't fail, basically. So all of this, whether it's working or if it's working, is coming from the energy or the feeling of I'm afraid it will fail, so I better keep checking, right? So if it's coming from that fear, from that scarcity, then we want to actually go a bit beyond and not just keep fixing when to stop saying it's working or not, because it doesn't really matter how often you say it. What matters is what's causing it. And what's causing it usually is that one of two things happening. One is that we're not trusting ourselves that we'll make it work. And two is we don't really believe that whatever we're trying to get at or whatever the goal we're trying to achieve is not going to work or may not work. And therefore, we need to always keep checking. Right? So therefore, it's actually very destructive because it's coming from that feeling of fear. It's coming from that feeling of scarcity. Now, you may say that, well, obviously it's coming from there, but we still need to ask that question. Otherwise, how do we really know if it's working or not? Right? Absolutely. I'm not against asking that question, but what we often tend to do as well is that we tend to not even know what that means it's working. Do you know what I mean? So so often I ask my clients okay, let's assume that it's not working, but we need to have something against to compare so we know that what is exactly not working. We can't just get a lump sum assessment of what's not working. We do need to have that feeling, or we want to pay attention to that intuition, or whatever the way you call it, the feeling to say, okay, maybe something is not working, I need to check. We need to pay attention to that. But in order to know if it's working or not, we need to know what is exactly that we think is not working. In other words, what is the definition of not working? Or if you don't like the negative, let's ask another way. What is the definition of it's working? Right? Do we say it's working because we get X amount of money? Do we say it's working because we get our goal hit? What happens if we don't hit fully? What happens if we grew a lot in the process, but we still didn't hit what we wanted? Does that still mean it's working or not working? So that's why the first thing that I would like to concentrate with you all is on that core of why are we not believing or trusting ourselves or trusting whatever we're doing to make it work. You may have many answers like, well, it's the first thing that I'm doing. It's the first time. I don't really know if it's what I want to be doing, but I'm doing it anyway because I'm tired of not doing anything, right? So there could be many, many reasons. So whatever your reason is, you decided to do that. So now it's time to decide how long before you start deciding that it's not working. And in that context, the second thing becomes important. What do we mean when we say it is not working? Or what do we mean when we say it is working? And these two things are key to continue the conversation. So one is, why are we not trusting ourselves and what we're doing, right? And the second is, what do we mean by it's working or not working? So we define it in advance, ideally. If not in advance, we still can look in the process and see if what we are really doing is working or not. Now, when you do that, your brain wants to go to the very classic answers. Like, I don't know about you, but at least this is, I'm assuming, from my brain, right? So my brain wants to go to the numbers usually because it's very easy, it's out there, it's like very tangible. And then if I don't see the numbers, it means it's not working, for instance, right? And then as an entrepreneur, that absolutely makes sense that I rely on numbers. And in so many ways, it's absolutely crucial. But in this context, when I'm already questioning myself and my trust and questioning my belief, then again questioning my numbers, or getting into the spiral of drama of no, it's not working because numbers are not there, is not really useful. So you need to check with your own context to see whether relying on those classic things, I call it, I mean, like the usual suspect of these numbers of things I need to have, or this application has to say yes if you're doing a job interview, or if you're getting a promotion, this needs to be yes or okay or maybe, then I believe that it's working. So if you're doing that, think of it if that's really what's the definition of it's working or not. Right? So you need to check your own context to see what is the definition of it's working for you is specifically, irrespective of what other people in your situation are doing. Because what I have realized, what is the definition of it's working for me, initially it was the numbers as well. But then I realized before even numbers, what I really want is I want to be achieving my desires of what I wanted to create in life in the first place. So my desires were that I wanted to be working only on things that I love working. I wanted to be working from wherever I want to be working, and I wanted to working in flexible hours without any schedule. If these things happen where I'm not freaking out about money, or if I'm not freaking out about other things, then it means it's working. The next thing that my definition was of it's working is when I wanted to feel like no more chasing things, or no more proving things, no more pleasing things. And these are not tangible things. These are not things that are written on paper, but for me, that was a definition. That was my definition of it's working if I start showing up that way. Right? So that was my definition. And therefore, whenever I have seen how I was showing up in my life, seen how I was living my life, seen how I was not beating myself up for not doing things, or for not suffering through because I need to suffer through to get a success or whatever, right? So when I had seen these results, then I was saying, yes, it is working. So do you see what I'm saying? So that's why it's important that we contextualize that it's working, we give that a definition, and we ask that it's working from the curiousness of our hearts, and not from the scarcity, frantic energy of, oh God, I have to check and I have to see, and be very attached and very fearful in case it doesn't work and I'm screwed and I'm failing, and I will be the bad mother, or I will be the bad wife, or bad breadwinner, or bad husband, or whatever it is that we want to beat ourselves up, is not necessary. So that's why once you have done that, right? So you have looked at why you think it's not working, what it's not working actually means, put it in the context of what it means for you in your context. Then you start realizing that its working energy really needs to come from a curious place, not from the needy, graspy, I have to have it energy or feeling. We need to get to that point, because otherwise it becomes very difficult to assess the results or evaluations of whether it's working or not if we are in the energy of, oh my God, everything's falling apart, or this is not how it's supposed to go. Then it's difficult to be neutral and look at what the data is saying. And even if the data is saying to the contrary, our brain wants to move us and pull us towards it's not working because something we're not sure anyway. So that's why we need to bring ourselves to the neutral space of looking at the data right? So we've defined what is it, it's working or not working indicators is, and an indicator is a strong word, but whatever the definition that you want to take, and then you look at what's happening, and then the next step you could do is decide or look at specifically where it's not working. And I cannot stress this enough, because oftentimes what our brains does when it comes from fear is we say things like, oh, this is all bad, or oh, this is not working altogether, right? So we get very like generalized, we get lump sum approach of black and white, and we do not want to assess the data from the black and white mindset. So that's why we need to look at the data from a neutral place, and then we need to look at specifically where it's not working in that context that we have and how we can make it work. For instance, if it's a transitioning case, and let's say that you decided to start a new career, and you decided to apply for different places, and you decided to apply for different places to see where the market is for you, or whether you can work there or not. And then we need to look at that whole journey and break them apart and see where exactly is the problem might be. Maybe the problem is that they're already receiving your application, and they're shortlisting and asking you to the written test, but they're not asking you to the oral interview. If they ask to the oral interview, but they didn't ask you to, I don't know, they didn't give you a contract, right? So we have all done all the things, so it is working. It's just maybe not working in that chain, in the part where from the oral interview to the contract part, what happened there. And we want to look specifically there as to how did I answer, what were my answers, how did I feel when I was answering, what was I believing when I was answering that during that interview, and how they might have interpreted what I have answered. Do you see what I'm saying? It's much more useful to say what's not working in that particular thing and how to fix it, rather than going to the whole and say, oh no, everything doesn't work, my skills are not required, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm not even sure that I should be doing this, I should just rather go back to what I know. That is when your default big beliefs will want you to go to the comfort, because it's not working. Space is very uncomfortable, and none of us want to be in that uncomfortable. And whenever we don't want to be in the uncomfortable, we rather want to go to the comfort, even though we left the comfort because we wanted to, because we wanted something else. Okay, so having said that, now let me give you my case of how often my brain wants to ask me, is it working? It's not working. And what are the contexts in which my brain asks these questions and what I do with it, right? So this is what I told you about, that I recorded my experience from May to exactly document and research how and what are the instances when my brain wants to say, maybe it's not working. Okay. So I have done the recording of the months period. Every day I journal from the morning, usually, where all my ideas or all my thoughts come up. And I was meticulously journaling about what my brain thought about achieving one particular goal. That particular goal was 2 clients in May, for instance, right? And I also had a tangible, intangible goal of feeling enough, or feeling like not more feeling this scarcity, or not more feeling this chasing energy. So I started the month's May, and I noticed I went through all of my notes now to have the overall picture, right? So if I look at the 31 days of May, I have noticed that on 21 days exactly, my brain kept producing thoughts like, well, others are doing better than you do, or what if you will not replicate the money from before, or what if you will not hit your overall goal in 2022, or what if you will not be able to provide for that medical university fees for my niece that I've been saving up for, right? So all of this were coming up, and is it really working or it's not working thoughts came up during that context of doubt, dramatizing, during the context of what if all of this is not working anyway, or what if it's not consistent, all of this. During those feelings, during those thoughts, the thought immediately then pops up of it's not working, or what if it's not working, right? So whenever what if it's not working, what actually my brain means is it is not working. Now, what happens usually is that whenever I feel in that state of it's not working, what usually I tended to do in the past, in April, in March, February, and previous month, usually what I would tend to do is I would just focus on, oh, it's not working, let me fix it here, let me fix it there, maybe I need to do this, maybe I need to do that, and then start actioning my way out, meaning doing more actions, more fixing, and more fixing here, more fixing there. What I realized though in May is that that type of energy is not only not useful, it generates more of those insecurities, it generates more of the evidence why it may not be working. So after getting coached by my coach and coaching my brain on regular basis, I have realized that in May, I will do the experiment where I will not entertain those feelings. I will not entertain those thoughts. It doesn't mean that they don't come up. They do come up, and that's fine. It's just that I will continue trusting myself. I will continue trusting my goal, and I continue working on my goal, even if my brain wants to say it's not working. But it's important that I also have a system of evaluating things on regular basis. So I get down to evaluating where something that I could do differently that I haven't done. What can I learn from the previous experience, right? So that's why it's important that I get very specific as to where it may not be working that I want to do differently. So I have done that, and I have, realized that the it's not working concept was not really about something specific. It was more about the overall goal. And since I know that this is what I want to do in life, this is really what I feel like I could be very useful and helpful in achieving my goals and helping achieve other people's goals, then I realized that all of this, it's not working, questioning or hesitation or doubt is just a part of the process, and I don't need to entertain it. I can just continue working on what I love doing, even if it comes up. So in other words, I can only entertain it and actually look at it if I'm curious as to what is really, I think that is not working, that I want to really have a close look. But if it's not coming from a curiosity, it's coming from this scarcity and fear, then I just let it be there. I don't do anything about it. I just continue focusing on doing my work. And what I also did differently in May is that not only I did not do anything about this in it's not working energy, but I also decided that in order to make my goal happen, these feelings are also part of it, as much as the feeling of commitment, as much as the feeling of dedication, the feeling of hesitation, feeling of doubt, feeling of it's not working, is it working, questioning are also part of my journey to making my goal happen. So in other words, I'm no longer shelving it and saying, oh my God, I can't do anything about it, or I need to really quickly fix it, but rather I told myself, no, I will not fix anything. I will not be in the fixing energy. I will be just continuing working on my things. I even reduced the things that I used to do before, and I just focused on doing things well and continued working towards my goal. So I started not only valuing what I'm doing, but I also got curious as to how I can do it better, how I can do it more interesting, rather than multiplying the quantity of things. And I also told myself that I will not change my goal no matter what happens. Because in the past, what would usually happen is that I would get very anxious, I would get very hesitant and doubtful, and then I would change my goal, or I will stop pursuing my goal in the middle of the month. And I realized that that's just another way of me failing ahead, which I did not want to do anymore. So that's why whenever my brain wants to change things, or whenever my brain says it's not working, my brain wants to offer a solution to change things. But I really highly suggest that do not change things until a particular period has passed and you have evaluated it. So this is the next piece that you really need to put in place, is that don't change things until you have evaluated it, until you've allowed a certain time pass, and then decide why you want to change it, and not because you're afraid of failing. Right? So this is very key. So I have shared the May goal, how it went and how I met my goal actually, and what I have really achieved from May. I feel that is very significant in my life, is that for the first time in my life, I feel whole. I was talking about it in other areas as well. I feel really whole. I feel really not chasing. I really feel like no more proving things, no more doing things because of money, or because of something else, or because of someone else, but rather truly wanting to do what I want to do and doing it the way that I love doing, and still achieving the goal that I want to, without feeling like I have to suffer a lot to achieve my goal, or I have to really work hard and 24/7 to get my goal, or I have to really hustle to get my goal. I have achieved it only because I continued sticking to my goal without keep changing things and keep fixing things on the way, and keep changing directions and keep changing that and this, and too many things to change. So to sum up, I would love for you to ask your brain next time when your brain says it's not working, really get curious as to why you're not trusting yourself and why you're not trusting your goal. Maybe you are trusting yourself, but not really your goal. So ask yourself why. And if your answer is something like, well, I don't know if it's going to work out, and it's not working is a signal that I need to fix something, ask yourself, is that really right? Or you're just afraid of failing? And that's why you're trying to fix things in advance. But what happens if you do fail? Because once we are so comfortable, or at least we know that failing is not the end of the world, things get so much easier, so much more fun than when we're so attached to not failing. And ironically, whenever we're so attached to not failing is actually when we do fail, because we in the end up creating what we're afraid of creating, and we keep thinking about it and focusing about it. So that's why don't do that to yourself. So that next step is define what it is for you that it's not working or it is working. How do you know if it is working or it's not working? What needs to happen in order for you to believe that it is working? And notice that we can believe things without having the evidence for it if we wanted to. We actually need a lot of the time keep believing in things and keep working towards them rather than keep searching for the evidence, because keep searching for the evidence really means that we're not trusting again what we're doing. And if we're not trusting what we're doing, then it's very difficult to continue moving forward, but rather we want to keep wanting to change. And that will just delay the process of achieving whatever we want to achieve, right? And then once you have that defined and identified of what it is that you want to achieve and how do you know if it's working and it's not working, then you get very specific as to where you think it's not working and get very clear on how to fix that bit rather than the whole thing. But it can also be that sometimes you just keep fixing everywhere as if like trying to fire extinguish everywhere. If that's the case, then you may also, of course, want to look at overall goal of whether you really want to be fixing everything at the same time, or rather you want to fix something to resolve all at the same time. So once you decide on the where it is, then give yourself time and don't change things until that time passed. And then evaluate it and then change it only then. And also be very specific as to where you will change it, right? So if you follow this process, I'm hoping, like I did with my own goal, is that not only you will achieve the goal that you wanted, you not only build more trust in yourself and in what you're doing, but you also get better at committing to making things work, even if there are lots of fear and doubt and hesitation are present. Remember, I'm realizing more and more that hesitation, doubt, and fear are just part of the process, and they're not there to stop us. They might be there to warn us whether it's the right way, whether we're going in the way that we want to. It might be part of the process, so let's just treat it as if this is supposed to happen, rather than, oh my God, something is wrong, I need to fix it and change it, and then redo things altogether. Okay, my dears, I hope this has been helpful. And if you want coaching on this, please do let me know. And I would love to get you coached up on, especially in the transitioning journey where this question will come up a lot. And I'm sure you will handle it well and follow this process and see what happens for you. See you next Friday. Bye.